million acres put into a timber trust from our what?
ONC land!
All right,
Thanks everyone for coming out today. I think we've got a great crowd. It is true, Portlanders scoff at the rain, so thanks everyone for showing up. So we have a very important message to deliver to Senator Wyden today, and by the way, his office is right there behind us. Let's wave. Senator Wyden! I hope you're listening clear. Never mind that the government is shut down. We know they're in there today. So as many of you may know, a bill authored by Representative Peter DeFazio just passed the House of Representatives. And this bill would transfer 1.7 million acres of our public forest lands in Western Oregon into a timber trust. And that timber trust would mandate clear cutting. And it would harm fresh drinking water for nearly half of all Oregonians. Now at the same time, literally as we're standing here, Senator Wyden is drafting his own version of a bill for ONC, so he too can increase logging on our federal lands. Now why is he doing that? It's because elected officials seem to think that the only way to generate revenues for rural Oregon counties is to log our public lands. Now that is a time-tested formula to give counties a percent of the revenues that come from logging. It's a time-tested formula, and it is a failed formula. Yeah. The more money counties need, that means the more logging there is on public lands. We know this system, and it has failed time and again. We do not want to go back to it. In fact, any proposal that would liquidate public lands for the sake of generating money to the counties is looking in the rearview mirror when it comes to solutions for Oregon. We know, in fact, that it's intact forests, healthy watersheds, clean drinking water, and lands that provide habitat for species, world-class recreation, world-class fishing opportunities. That is what will sustain Oregon's rural economies. In fact, the connection between clear-cut logging and logging roads and fresh water is very well known. The Bull Run watershed, that's where you all get your drinking water, it is fully protected by law. There is no logging allowed in that watershed. That's why you've got some of the best water in the country, rivaling New York City, I might add. Now, Peter DeFazio's bill, does his bill protect rural drinking water supply areas? No! Senator Wyden, hear this loud and clear. We need our drinking water forested areas fully protected. In fact, if you want sustainable economies, towards what a modern economy needs. Our speaker is Angela Wartes, and Angela is a mom, but she's also an organic farmer in the central coast of Oregon, and she's been farming blueberries and mixed vegetables for 9 years, and her farm is the Common Treasury, which is certified organic since 1993. I'm going to turn the microphone over to Angela, and she can talk to you firsthand about what it means to have intact forests and watersheds for her farm.
How's it going? I feel prepared. I have 2 or 3 hoods and 6 coats on. I'm ready.
Right on the mic.
Good afternoon. Pleased to be here today representing rural agriculture and organic farmers. Is that good? I live on 17 acres in a farm in Lobster Valley that borders the Sioux National Forest, some private land, and a Christmas tree farm. We are a mile from the ONC lands, and they're just up the drainage. Our farm abuts Lobster Creek, which flows into the Alsea River. It's a very remote part of Oregon, but I think all the fly fishermen in the crowd probably know where we're at. I'm speaking here today because I'm greatly concerned about proposals to increase clear cutting on public lands in Western Oregon and the impacts it'll have on clean water and watersheds that directly benefit my livelihood and also those of farming communities around the area. Yeah. I'm no stranger to clear cuts. I drove up here today prepared for the inevitable landslide or fallen trees. Starting with the first fall storm, we always carry a chainsaw in the trunk of the car, just in case, to increase our chances of getting to the valley. Our soils are steep and they're saturated in 110 inches of rain per year, and here you only have to do what's 40 inches of rain. You're lucky. Landslides are common in the Coast Range and often close roads and cut off our power. No doubt about it, clear cuts definitely cause landslides. After 9 years in Lobster Valley, I might start a photo collection of evidence if anybody needs any more proof about it. In 2012, my husband and daughter were on their way to Corvallis on Highway 34 toward LC, and they started to climb Mary's Peak, and there was a tree across the road. And so Garth, my husband, gets out of the car and takes a chainsaw, and he's going to go figure out how to cut the tree down so he can pass by. But he hears breaking and snapping of trees up the hill and looks up, and there's a huge gush of water that comes across the road. And he runs back to the car and throws in the chainsaw and drives it back 50 yards, and then the whole hillside came down on the road. So, and then that closed Highway 34 for a week and a half. So it's, and I guess I should just ask the question, what do you think lies above that landslide? And it's a giant clear cut, a huge clear cut. If you increase industrial clear cutting in ONC lands, what's going to be the effect? Well, from Lobster Valley, I can tell you, we know the impact. More silt in the rivers and creeks means less habitat for the spawning salmon, more road closures, landslides, and flooding. The goal after clear cutting is to grow the trees back as quickly as possible, and so that they can log again. And then herbicides are used to kill the broadleaf shrubs and trees that compete with commercially valuable ones. In the industrial forest model, the more clear cutting is more herbicide use in general. As a certified organic operation, I must disclose any application of herbicide on conventional adjacent property to my certifier by law, whether it's the neighbor's land or it's the forest land. And organic farmers must maintain buffer strips on all the farm borders to protect our crops from herbicide and other contaminations. We are a small percentage of agricultural land base in the U.S., but even in our prolonged recession, organic food sales still gain ground every year. Sales of organic food grew by 25% between 2008 and 2011 around the world, and the U.S. dominates those sales with $28 billion in 2011 alone. Organic farming in Oregon is growing substantially. We have 682 certified operations right now, and it's a bright spot in our economy, and it's not an endeavor that should be or threatened by unsustainable forest policy. We get our irrigation water right out of Lobster Creek, and what will more herbicides do to the fertility of my soil and the integrity of my organic crops? If I have more than 5% of the EPA threshold for 2,4-D, which is a common herbicide used, and any of the crops that I sell, they can't be sold as organic. Senator Wyden, I challenge you today to support rural communities in a way that keeps us all safe, to fund our local schools and services in a way that doesn't require clear-cutting more public lands and applying more herbicides. Please protect our watersheds and our water. Don't increase jobs in logging that can harm jobs in other industries. There are many ways to generate revenue for counties and create jobs, and clear-cutting on public lands is not the answer.
All right, our next speaker is Travis Williams, and he's Executive Director of Willamette Riverkeeper. And Willamette Riverkeeper's sole purpose is to protect the water quality in the Willamette River.
I work in the Willamette watershed, which is about 12,000 square miles of land. Many of you are quite familiar with it. When I looked at the map for these ONC lands, it will basically be clear-cut with very limited stream buffers as currently proposed. There's an array of amazing rivers in the southern part of the Willamette Basin that will be impacted. The McKenzie, the Coast Fork Willamette, the Middle Fork Willamette, the Mohawk, the Santiam. This really makes no sense in an age when we are spending tens of millions of dollars to improve fish passage at dams and to restore habitat in this basin, and then you're going to go and clear cut the upper ends of these watersheds, many of which are the same watersheds we're relying on to recover spring Chinook. It doesn't make sense. These same watersheds provide drinking water for 1.8 million people in Oregon. You think of all the cities and towns that draw from that system. Again, it doesn't make sense. The science shows that our existing stream buffers can be effective. It makes no sense in 2013 and beyond to propose to finish those buffers. Under the Northwest Forest Plan, those buffers are effective, and certainly they'd be much more effective than what some people are proposing now. Clear-cutting denudes landscapes. It makes me absolutely sick in the state of Oregon to do a flyover over our forests and to see what we have. And this proposal for short-term economic gain over the long-term health of our watersheds, again, makes no sense. It's short-sighted and it's wrong. And it doesn't protect watershed health. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. It makes no sense.
So I'm asking, along with all of you, for Senator Wyden to stand up and protect our watersheds for the long haul. Protect our streams, protect our rivers, protect the ecological integrity of these places, and not diminish it for short-term gain. We don't want to forsake the long-term health of these public lands in the name of turning a short-term profit. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. All right, next up is Tom Wolf, and he's Executive Director for Oregon Council of Trout Unlimited, and he speaks for all the wild salmon. Tom.
Thank you, Randy. And I just want to start off with a story. This takes me back to when I was 6 years old. My parents made me go out with my grandfather to fish when I would rather stay at home and play with my friends, because it was a horrible experience for most of the day. I was wet, I was cold, I was out in the wild, I was with a grumpy old grandfather, until lo and behold, I caught my first fish, and there it was, this 10-inch monster sitting in my hand, and I was hooked. It became a passionate call for me for the last 50 years. A passion that now encompasses way too many rods, way too many reels, way too many equipment, and way too many time out in the water. It is a passion for hundreds of thousands of Oregonians who fish, who spend time out there, who you can see their boats on the Willamette, you can see their boats in the Columbia, you can see them all around. It's a great experience, and it's prompted some of the greatest literature in American in our time. It's authors like Ernest Hemingway, Zane Grey, David James Duncan have written many fine stories about the pleasures of fishing, and it is a spiritual challenge that is a rescue for many people stuck in jobs of drudgery. They can escape that on a day and spend time out on what we in the fishing world call the church on the river. And then beyond that, fishing provides $1.1 billion to the Oregon economy every year. Not only for people that make rods, make reels, make equipment, but for people that in the rural communities that own hotels, own restaurants, tackle shops, or guides. It's a tremendous amount of money that goes into those communities for people that come to fish. I will be spending a week fishing in Central Oregon shortly, and my friend and I will spend lots of money putting money in there. And it shames me that the current plans, the plans drawn up by DeFazio, doesn't take into account the money that is provided by fishing, the enjoyment that is provided by fishing. These plans, the current proposals, would cut too much and ruin fishing on these rivers, ruin the runs, and make our fishing opportunities much less available. It is a wrong plan. is the wrong thing to do. We need a new plan that provides for the economy of fishing, provides for the escape of fishing. In closing, 20 years ago, I was going through a real tough time in my life, and I went out fishing with my best friend, my 92-year-old grandfather, the same guy that had taught me to fish. And we sat out there and we fished, and things got a little better. But after we finished, he sat down in the car with me, and my 92-year-old logging grandfather, who had never cried his life, cried and said, "Tom, my generation fucked up the forest. You need to fix that." And the next day, my strong, healthy, as a horse grandfather died. And I'm here to honor his memory as a fisherman, as a logger, and say to Senator Wyden, we have to have a plan that accounts for fishermen, that accounts for fishing, that accounts for wild fish. We cannot have the same old bullshit. We have to, Senator Wyden, write a plan that takes into account all Oregonians, not just loggers, not just that small part of the community, but the people that depend on fishing for recreation, for escape, for money, and all those things. We must have the right plan for all Oregonians, because as so many times I said, that is the Oregonian way.
So our next and last speaker, then I'll come back and wrap up, is talking about dollars and cents. We are talking about dollars and cents. It's Ernie Nemi. And Ernie is president of Natural Resource Economics. And what he does for a living is put a dollar value on the things that you can't buy in a store. Fresh water, the salmon, intact forests. That's what he does for a living. And if you've ever heard rousing economists speak, get ready, because here comes Ernie Nemi. Big hand.
Well, I will save you, Randy. We're not going to have any economic chance. I've tried that in the past and it's never worked. Somehow, I don't understand why. Well, what you heard today really reinforces lessons that we learned more than 20 years ago when we adopted the Northwest Forest Plan. This is not a choice between using our forests to create a healthy economy, to create jobs, to create a good social system in our rural communities. On the one hand, the economy versus the environment. This is not a choice between the economy and the environment. This is a choice between two very different economic futures. In one of those futures, we will have jobs tied to a mature industry. Those jobs will be dead-end jobs. There is no way for the industry to increase those jobs. On the other hand, we will have jobs that are connected to a healthy forest, to clean water, to wild fish, and the like. You've heard today about industries that are out there now that are on the way to growth. Let me give you some facts and figures. Analysis by the Oregon Department of Forestry suggests that if we implemented the DeFazio bill, at the very most, it would create 5,500 jobs total for the next 25 years. That's it. Now, in actuality, it would decline because the industry has experienced employment declines almost every year, with one or two exceptions, since 1985 when the industry broke the unions. So this is not an issue about federal lands reducing employment in the timber industry or federal lands reducing employment in rural communities. This is about what the industry does. So at the most, you would have 5,000 jobs. Well, let's look at one other industry that already has been mentioned, the outdoor recreation industry. The outdoor recreation industry in Oregon already employs 140,000 people. That industry has grown about 5% through the recession. What do we have on the timber industry? The timber industry now is at about 25,000 people. 25,000 people in this state. That's all it is. That industry lost about 40% of its jobs during the recession. It is a very variable industry. So, if we look at jobs, this is not a way to create jobs. I've heard Senator Wyden, I've heard Representative DeFazio say we need to log, we need to clear cut in order to have jobs out in rural communities. This is not a way to get it. We also have heard them all say that we need to generate income for the counties so that we can have good social systems out in the counties. Well, when the Northwest Forest Plan was adopted 20 years ago, there was a lot of concern, rightfully so, that when you reduce logging on federal lands, you would see tremendous social distress out in these counties. So a lot of very talented social science researchers went out and looked. What's the relationship here? What they found was just the opposite. Communities that had more logging had worse social conditions. They had more domestic abuse. They had more child abuse. They had more use of drugs. They had more violence. So generating income for the counties in order to have good social conditions out in the counties, we've been there, it's a loss. We've been there, it doesn't work. We've been there, it's not going to work in the future. And then there's the real game changer that we did not discuss at all when we developed the Northwest Forest Plan, and that's climate change. These lands contain more, hold on to more carbon than almost any other ecosystem in the world. Right? Almost any. More than the Amazon. These lands hold on to more carbon than the others. When you convert them to industrial logging, half of that is going to go into the atmosphere as carbon dioxide. As it goes up into the atmosphere, it's going to intensify droughts, it's going to intensify rainstorms, it's going to intensify the rise of sea level on the coast, it's going to intensify more disease, it's going to intensify more heat waves that kill grandmas in the backyard. If you look at the best way that we can now to quantify the damage that this will cause, the damage per acre will be about $85,000 per acre. The timber off of those lands will be about $5,000 per acre. So for every $5, you're going to get $85 of damage. That is not the way to develop a new economy. That's not the way to provide leadership in the world. That's not the way to pass on a healthy economy and a healthy environment to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
So after listening to farmers and fishermen and economists, you'd think it's an open and shut case, wouldn't you? Yeah. Pretty clear what we need to do. But somehow it's not clear to our elected officials. And it may not be clear yet to Senator Wyden. It is a completely false choice that we need to log and clear-cut federal lands to support rural communities. A completely false choice.
It's a lie!
The good news is we do not have to go down this road. For whatever reason, Senator Wyden and DeFazio and other Oregon elected officials think that there's not enough logging coming out of Oregon. Well, they are wrong. Oregon practically leads the country in log exports to Asia. That's right. There is no shortage of logs coming off of Oregon's forested lands. They are going over to China. And they're going over as unprocessed logs, whole trees. So, corporations are getting rich, and when they ship those logs over to Asia, so go the jobs that manufacture wood products. So if Senator Wyden, you're concerned about jobs and Oregon Governor's Kitzhaber, why are we sending those logs overseas with not a single American hand touching them?
Follow the money!
You got it. In fact, logging industry pays very low property taxes in Oregon and zero severance tax. That means no taxes when they separate the tree from the stump. Washington State industry, they pay fair taxes and they've got a severance tax. To the south in California, private industry also pays taxes and severance tax. But because so much federal money, our money, was going to the counties, Oregon State did away with that severance tax just years ago. So instead of logging our federal public lands, how about if the state of Oregon institute a state-level tax on exports? And we could take that money, which will be a lot more money than generated by logging federal lands, and let's help those corporations give back to the counties. Let's help those corporations give those money to local communities, to give money to schools and other important government services. So we hope that Senator Wyden recognizes this is a false choice, and there are many, many other solutions other than logging our federal lands. Taxes in rural communities are low, and because they are low, they often attract people who come to Oregon because the taxes are low. Who bears the burden of that? The urban residents, everyone standing here. There is certainly a more equitable way to deal with this, including relooking at the tax structure. So Senator Wyden, oh, I think I see him at the window there. I hope you have heard us today. Any bill that requires clear cutting on federal lands is unacceptable. Any bill that threatens Oregon's clean water and watersheds is unacceptable. Any bill that threatens our older forests and the hundreds of species that call these forests home is unacceptable. Any law that you write, any bill that undermines environmental laws, the public's right to have an input to say how these lands are managed, and the Northwest Forest Plan, is unacceptable. Any bill that increases logging at the expense of sustainable communities, organic farming, sports fishing, outdoor recreation, and on is unacceptable. Senator Wyden, you have a chance right now to chart a new course, not just for funding rural counties, but for management of our public lands. And it's pretty clear. It is intact forests, home for species, clean water, recreation, and sustainable businesses who depend on these lands for their livelihood. That is the future of Oregon. And anything you do to undermine that will be a giant step backwards. So, we are soon going to walk over to Senator's office and do some chanting. Who's up for that?
Trees not stumps! 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 Big timber's gone nuts! We don't want their clear cuts! Big timber's gone nuts! We don't want their clear cuts! Big timber's gone nuts! We don't want their clear cuts! Big timber's gone nuts! We don't want their clear cuts! Big timber's gone nuts! We don't want their clear cuts! Clean water! Clean air! Leave our forests there! 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 Ron Wyden, don't get stumped! 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 Trees not stumps! 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 Trees not stumps!
Senator Wyden!
Do you hear us?
Senator Wyden!
Do you hear us? Protect our water, no stumps! 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 Hey, Wyden! Why are you so tied into the timber industry's lies? It's no time to compromise! Hey, Wyden, why you hiding? Why are you so tied into the timber industry's lies? It's no time to compromise! Hey, Wyden, why you hiding? Why are you so tied into the timber industry's lies? It's no time to compromise!
Next step would be, what can we do?
What can we do?
What can we do? I would suggest everyone pick up the phone and or email Senator Wyden's office and please deliver the messages that you heard here today. If we can flood his office with phone calls and emails, he will start to get the message. So, can everyone pick up the phone later today or tomorrow?
Right now.
Oh, I forgot. Cell phones. Wait a minute. Where's Senator Wyden's number? All right, here we go.
Let's repeat it. Well,
All right, 503
503
326
326
7525.
7525.
Okay, so I'm calling Senator Wyden right now, and I'd love to get everybody to holler no clear cuts onto his message machine with me. Can y'all do that? It's ringing. 150 of my closest friends outside of your office. And we have a message for you.
No more clear cuts.
Okay, you ready? 1, 2, 3.
No more clear cuts!